Next, let's talk about the recent advances in AI. The paper that changed everything was called Attention is All You Need. It was published in 2017, and it was essentially focused on something quite technical that in the next minute or two I'll go into a bit more detail about. So this paper focuses on scaling specific attention mechanism using transformers. So they proposed a new architecture called transformers, and that was essentially there to ensure that more text can be focused on in a smarter way than had been done previously. Now let's kind of go into the details of how that works. So one fascinating thing about both customer experience, CX, as well as AI, is the fact that context is critical. In fact, without context, in many cases, there's no meaning. And the reason why transformers, especially the way formulated in the 2017 paper by Vaswani et al., was so critical was the fact that actually attention matters, and they captured that from machine intelligence perspective. So a very simple example would be if you have two sentences. We went to the riverbank, and I need to go to the bank to make a deposit. Now, those two sentences use the word bank, but the actual underlying meaning of the concept bank in those two sentences is quite different. One is referring to the riverbank, and the other one is referring to the financial institution. In the old school models of NLP, natural language processing, and computational linguistics, even before the neural network revolution, you basically had a problem of what sort of meaning did words have. And typically you have to have an average meaning. So the word bank would have an average meaning between the riverbank and the financial institution. And hopefully you'd agree with me that that sort of doesn't make sense. There's no such thing as an average real meaning. But transformers could ensure that the meaning was based on the actual context in which the word occurred. So it could distinguish between the riverbank bank and the financial institution bank. One of the critical things about how Chattermill approaches understanding natural language is looking at both human context as well as machine context. And over the years, we've had very different architectures that were state of the art for that time to address this. Historically, we started with traditional RNNs, recurrent neural networks, that essentially had a time component and allowed us to basically model longer statements. So what I mean with that is like responses or email content. But then we had long short-term memories, LSTMs, that were an improvement on RNNs. And then since 2017, although we at Chattermill started using them from early 2018, transformers, which are sort of essentially the fuel of the current AI revolution of large language models. And the advantage of these transformers is the fact that it has global attention, so it has sort of full context over as much context as is required, especially in customer feedback data. Now, there is a high computational cost for that, but that's where advances in computing and hardware have made it possible to do large-scale CX analysis.